based on the Persian Gulf, their ships sailed out to trading ports in modern Bahrain and Oman, and from there they sailed along the coast to trade with another of the world's most ancient and mysterious cultures, the people we know today as the Indus Valley Civilization. From there, the Sumerians got all kinds of spices and gemstones like carnelian, as well as the brilliant blue lapis lazuli that the Sumerians adored. They used it to make jewelry and amulets, inlays in gaming boards, musical instruments and sculptures of astonishing beauty. All of this trade would have passed through Ur and swelled the city to a wealth that likely no other human habitation had ever achieved. Grave goods uncovered in Ur show not only the incredible wealth of its rulers, but also magnificent craftsmanship that suggests an advanced community of artists. One such artifact, found in a royal tomb in Ur, has given us an incredible insight into the lives and manners of the ancient Sumerians. It's an ornate, decorative piece of furniture, inlaid with a mosaic of shell, red limestone and lapis lazuli, and its images show detailed scenes from everyday life around 4,600 years ago. Today, it is called the Standard of Ur. On one side, the artifact shows images of the Sumerians at war, the chariots pulled by donkeys, the soldiers wearing leather capes and helmets, the men carrying spears and axes. On the other side, it depicts the Sumerians at peace. Farmers and herders working on one level, and above them the scribes with their shaved heads sitting at their desks. At this time, urbanism in the Sumerian world was reaching its peak. By the end of the 3rd millennium, a majority of the region's population would live in cities. And in this newly urbanized world, the economic power of Ur remained king. Over the next centuries, its power expanded and contracted, and at one point, some of its kings wrote inscriptions, calling themselves both the King of Ur and the King of Kish, another city that lay nearby. This suggests that Ur may have subdued some of its neighbours under its political control. But by the mid-3rd millennium, it seems the influence of Ur began to wane. This was a new, militarized age, when the power of trade and diplomacy seems to have no longer been enough. And one city, called Lagash, truly came into its own in this era of violence. Lagash was a slaving city. It had grown rich by raiding villages in the hills, kidnapping people and selling them across the region. Sometime around the year 2500 BC, Lagash fell out with its neighbour, a city called Umma. The dispute seems to have been over a stretch of farmland along the river, and it caused the two cities to go to war. One carved stone monument from this time, known as a stele, captures something of the spirit of this age. It is known as the Stele of the Vultures. The upper part of the stone is normal enough. It shows the king of Lagash, a man named Eannatum, leading his soldiers into battle. They wear leather helmets and skirts made of reeds, shouldering their spears. These spears would have likely been topped with blades of copper or bronze, and would have flashed red in the sun as they marched. The king is riding ahead of them in an early chariot, wearing an animal skin slung across his chest, with a spear and a container of javelins beside him. When the armies met, the stele shows King Eannatum of Lagash dismounting from his chariot and proceeding to lead his men on foot. They advance in a phalanx, a tight square of men with broad shields protecting their fronts, and a porcupine of short spears jutting out ahead. The fighting was bitter. Eannatum was struck in the eye by an arrow, but he lived on to see his army to victory, as the inscription on the stele records.
Eannatum struck at Umma. The bodies were soon 3,600 in number. I, Eannatum, like a fierce storm wind, I unleashed the tempest.
As the soldiers of Umma tried to flee the bloody battlefield, the stele shows the soldiers of Lagash cutting them down and trampling them beneath their feet. There's something to this carving that to me embodies something of a change in the spirit of Sumerian warfare. It's a particular kind of nastiness that revels in the suffering of your enemies, and this is shown most clearly in the part of the carving that gives it its name. These are the vultures flying overhead, carrying the severed heads of the soldiers of Umma in their beaks, picking at their tongues and eyes. It clearly shows a kind of massacre perpetrated by the city of Lagash, and it does so with relish. Due to military victories of this kind, the slaving city of Lagash went on to conquer much of southern Mesopotamia. Lagash established what some historians have called the first true empire in the world, but its rule was short-lived. In these ancient times, administrating even one city was difficult, and the empire of Lagash, despite its military success, was soon critically overstretched. To make matters worse, King Eannatum seems to have ruled through what amounts to a campaign of terror. Unsurprisingly, his rule was unpopular, and revolts rose up against him. As the hated empire of Lagash fractured and collapsed, the ruler of one of its subjugated cities seized his chance. He was the king of Umma, the city whose defeat and humiliation is depicted with such relish on the stele of the vultures, and his name was Lugal-Zagezi. It's not clear exactly what made Lugal-Zagezi so successful, but it's clear he was animated by an ardent desire for revenge against the empire of Lagash. Perhaps he had even been at the battle when King Eannatum had slaughtered thousands of his fellow citizens. He rose in rebellion against Lagash, and quickly toppled kings that were still loyal to the empire in the cities of Kish and Larsa. Then he marched on the great city of Ur itself, and the mighty walled fortress of Uruk. These both fell in turn, and the rebel Lugal-Zagezi moved his capital to Uruk. Finally, he marched on the city of Lagash itself, the heart of the empire, and it's here that that fiery vengeance in his heart burst out. The city didn't hold out for long. Lugal-Zagezi burst over its walls, sacked the city, and burned it to the ground. Even by the standards of the time, this seems to have been a shocking act, as one piece of Sumerian poetry recalls with sorrow.
Because the man of Umma destroyed the bricks of Lagash, he committed a sin against the city's god. The god will cut off any hand raised against him. May Nadaba, the personal goddess of Lugal-Zagezi, make him bear all these sins.
After sacking Lagash, Lugal-Zagezi's momentum seems to have been unstoppable. He worked his way north, up the course of the two rivers, and soon he had conquered all the regions that Lagash had once claimed. One inscription written by him even claims to have conquered all the lands between what he calls the upper and the lower seas, meaning from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean coast.